Lionel, is that you?
There, I think I got it. Dave?
Lionel.
Dave, you're on the free channel.
This is a unique and rare opportunity historically, but as I understand it, it's going to be a little more standard fare as we go forward.
Yeah, and I've already talked to Chris Adams. He's going to fill in a bit for you on the Patreon channel.
Well, I'm indebted to Chris. Chris is a guy that I met in passing, and he's a remarkable model railroader, and somebody I'm excited to spend more time with in the future.
He is an excellent modeler and a great personality. And when we talked about maybe putting you on the free channel a little bit more, give people a bit more access, for those that choose not to sign up to the Patreon channel, why you wouldn't, I have no idea. But for those who choose not to, we'd give people, the problem is you've got so much to do so much writing and so many books for sale. We thought, well, we better make sure the whole world knows about it.
Well, it's, as always, it's a pleasure to be part of the AML. It's a lot of fun to be able to contribute, and the best is yet to come. I really feel like we're just getting started with this whole thing. You've said for years, it's like we're riding out to the first wave. We haven't even caught the first wave, and sometimes I think we're catching that first wave. We're just, we're learning to ride now, and it's a very exciting time.
Yeah, I don't know if we're at the first wave or not. We're see one coming, I think. You know what? Here's something. This is kind of stuff that I like to talk about on the podcast with you. Here's something that I think I kind of knew this before. I think I already knew this, but I reaffirmed it tonight in my head. Something that you and I have in common. We decided when we were going to do this podcast a few days ago. There has been no communication between the two of us until just very shortly before the podcast. You sent a text saying, "Hey, I'll be there in a couple of minutes." And I'm like, "Yeah, okay." And have you ever noticed how, like, that's the way I am? Like, if I tell you I'm going to be there, unless you hear differently, I'm going to be there. Right?
That's how you've done things since very early in my time with you. And I'm going to hazard that's how you and I were both raised.
Yeah. Like I would contact you if I wasn't going to be there, but we made a plan. We made a plan for the certain time that we were going to record this podcast. And it's like, I'm thinking, okay, I'll do this, and this. Oh, Dave's going to be showing up soon. And I have no doubt that, unless there was an emergency or something, I was like, yeah, okay. And I always have that, people you say to people, you make a plan, and then they contact you like 2 days before. Are you still coming? I'm like, yeah. I didn't tell you I wasn't. And I think I think some people need constant confirmation that X, Y, and Z are going to happen.
Well, there is an appetite for constant confirmation. I'm going to argue that I think that there's different ways that we were all brought up, and that social media has got a lot of positives to it. I mean, there's no question of the upside for model railroading, and I think for society in general about social media. We're aware of things that we never had access to before, and we're among people that share our vision and our common interests for things that we never would have had access to before, except through print media months later, or the occasional RPM or National Train Show, or NMRA meet. I think that the way you and I were raised, and this is something from our parents and I think the generations we're from, I think that there's a lot to be said for no news is good news. People these days, how's it going? What's going on? Same stuff, different day. Oh, same old. Just another day in paradise. I hear this day in and day out. Guys, no news is good news. And if you're having just another day, that means you are literally having a good day.
Yeah, that's right.
No question. No news is good news. My dad was always adamant about that growing up. And David, why do you need to hear from that person again? Why are you talking on the phone with them? They're going to come over in a couple hours. My buddy Jack would call, hey, can I come over? Yeah, we talk for half an hour. And I get off the phone and get yelled at. David, isn't he coming over? Well, yeah. Well, then why are you talking to him for half an hour? You're going to see him when he gets here. Yeah, I guess that's true. Yeah, come on. Let's get some stuff done.
Well,
that was the way I grew up.
My favorite one is, we've talked about this before. My favorite one is people will say to me, and especially over the last few years, people go, "How you doing?" And I go, "I'm okay." And I would say more than half the people, when you say, "I'm okay," they're like, "Oh, what's wrong?"
What's wrong? It's like, well, actually, being okay means there's nothing wrong.
I'm okay. I don't have.
Oh my gosh!
I don't have to be euphoric to be having an okay day. I'm okay.
Yeah. There's a lot to unpack there. There's a lot to unpack there, and we'll get there this evening because that's how these things go.
Absolutely. I have. We're going to talk about some interesting things, but I had a revelation the other day, and I'm not sure how you're going to be able to handle this. I had meant to text you a couple of times asking you this question, but I never got around to it. So I'll ask you this question now. Do you know who Dick Vitale is?
Yes.
I think you are the Dickie V of model railroading.
It's funny. We just talked briefly about my dad who passed away in 2016, and I've been missing him and my mom a lot lately for a bunch of different reasons. I can be a nostalgic and sentimental person on the right occasions, but my dad used to laugh and laugh and laugh at Dickie V. My dad loved college basketball. He loved a lot of sports. He was a sports guy, and my love of sports comes from my dad. And my dad thought Dick Vitale, the way he would the one-liners and the little inside little snicker jokes that he would come up with, all the little slogans when someone had a slam dunk or hit their second three in a row or the hot streak. Dickie V, one of a kind. And I'm very flattered to hear a sports fan like yourself even bring that up in the same equation as me, because I'm just a happy train guy.
Well, yeah, but I don't think of you as the priceless one-liners or the quips. Quips, yeah. But I don't think of you in the Dickie V sense of the priceless one-liners. I think of you in the Dickie V sense of the enthusiasm that you bring to the show. And I mean, your enthusiasm is a different enthusiasm that maybe Dickie V would have, but it's basically the same thing. You have this overflowing enthusiasm for the hobby, along with the knowledge, which Dickie V had extensive knowledge about basketball. You have extensive knowledge about railroading and model railroading. And it's just this combination of things that you could never teach anybody. You could never teach anybody those particular traits. It just has to happen naturally. And those people stand out. You just stand out as somebody because, and the reason, what got me thinking about that was you and I were talking about Springfield. I think maybe it was even on the last Fireside Chat. This is Fireside Chat number 14, I think.
I think it's 15.
Holy
15.
Mackerel.
Which is a good number. A good number. If I recall, there's been one of these that was on the public channel, the open AML channel where everyone is welcome. and that was one we had discussed ahead of time, and I'm happy that it was out there. But I'm really excited for this new era where more of these are going to be available on the public channel. I think there's a lot to share. There's a lot of excitement in the hobby these days in a lot of different directions. And I think, you've got a really unique insight into it. I'm excited for what's coming down the pike, and I'm really excited to be part of it and to grow this energy, and enthusiasm is part of it, but so is gratitude. I spent a lot of time being very happy, really satisfied about the way things are going in the hobby these days. It's a really exciting time. And so, hey, look, there will never be another Dickie V. He is a character. When he used to do the Syracuse basketball games, I always enjoyed watching Syracuse basketball as an alum from Syracuse, and with Jim Boeheim and watching, the way the coaching staff would work with the team and the way this grew and morphed and changed. It was always fascinating. But then you'd add Dickie V's enthusiasm to the top of that, and it was just an accelerant on the fire. And just what a pleasure. What a pleasure.
Well, and I don't think you're anything like Dickie V. I think you remind me of him and his uniqueness to what his particular vocation and interests were. That's where I see Uncle Dave as the Dickie V of model railroading. You just have you have a unique enthusiasm and knowledge. The knowledge is a big part of it. You have a unique enthusiasm and knowledge and a way of dispensing the knowledge that is fun for everybody. So it's it is a compliment, but it's more of a case for me of being able to figure out what tool you are in the toolbox.
Well, right. I mean, I wouldn't. I mean, if I met Dick Vitale on the street, I would recognize him, because he was always such a feature on those basketball games. But I don't know anything about the guy. Whether I'm like him or not is it's almost not. Who knows? Who knows? I don't think so. But the enthusiasm, as you say, yeah. I mean, there's a part of me that really feels that this is such a unique time in the hobby of model railroading that for the first time, model railroading is the confluence between railroading, prototype, professional railroaders, rail fans, and model railroaders. Model railroading, because it's been such a tight-knit community for so long, even more so because rail fanning is always about taking your own picture, having your own experience. Model railroading is about, there are people that want to do it for themselves. There's the people that just model, and that's they love the detail, and they love the prototype fidelity of a certain model they're building, the weathering to make it just perfect, or the sounds or the lights. All part of the hobby. But the operations side of model railroading, which admittedly has always been a niche, has always been about bringing people together. It's always been about a group of people accomplishing something together. And so model railroading as the operations side of that has always been a group activity. And of course, the shows are always a giant group of people with a common interest. As these national meets and these operating sessions and these, Facebook Lives and, weaving in all of these different pathways in model railroading, as that becomes more and more of a common knowledge, commonly accessible experience, it's breaking down walls between professional railroading and rail fanning and modelers. All of this is starting to spin in its own unified orbit. And it's like watching a bunch of storms come together over the North Atlantic in early hurricane season. There's an energy to it that's greater than the sum of the parts.
That's a great description, actually. That's a great way of describing it. There is an energy that's occurring that we've been trying to put our finger on for quite some time. And it is. It's like a hurricane. Storms gathering together to create a force that's almost unstoppable. And you're right. It's how many times you talk to full-time railroaders that have no problem admitting they're model railroaders, and it's just because of the social media and the internet. We are long after I'm gone, this hobby will become more and more and more mainstream, because you don't have to have a layout the size of the Onondaga Cutoff now to be fully engaged in the hobby. You could have a piece of 3-foot flex track, but there's so much you can do with a locomotive just by turning on the lights and the sounds and the this and the that and the next thing. I think more and more people will be drawn in to the hobby. Some people will be fringe players. Some people will be, it'll go the spectrum from the guy with a piece of 3-foot flex track and a locomotive on it to, he'll have Rapido trains on it.
Rapido trains.
Your fast track to model railroad fun. That's your job.
Hands down.
Yeah.
Well, I guess that's true. It is
because
my job
we're
now.
on the free channel.
We're on the free channel. I'm still learning, and this is
it's a lot of pressure.
We're gonna have to get used to this. I do learn, but I learn slowly, as it were.
We had a series of extensive meetings where I said, "Are you sure you can handle being on the free channel? Because there's a lot of responsibility."
Well, there's a lot of responsibility. Like there's a lot of Rapido trains on the Onondaga Cutoff, because it's Rapido trains.
Your fast
track to model railroading fun.
Yeah.
See, there we go. I'll learn by experience.
So I say Rapido train. You want to be better at it than Kelly. You don't want to go down that slippery slope.
I dig Kelly, though. I dig Kelly. We hand him this. This is a guy. What an unbelievable contributor to the hobby.
Yeah, I totally agree. I totally agree. This
is a guy who he jumped in with both feet from day one on the AML.
Yep.
From day one. And he is not shied away from contributing for, my gosh. I mean, how long has the AML been around now, Lionel?
We're in our 9th year.
So we are coming up on a decade of universal communication. A decade.
Yeah.
That's a long time by anybody's standards.
I know, it's kind of hard to believe when you stop to think about it, because by August of 2024 it will have been a full decade that we've been doing this, and I'm thinking, how the heck did it? And yet, what shocks me more than anything is a decade later, I'm still having just about as much fun as I did when I started.
Because that's what this hobby is about.
Yeah, and I never changed the approach. My approach was always, I'd like to talk to this guy. Let's see if he wants to be on the podcast. Like I've said numerous times lately, I've like, you wouldn't call Dave up and say, hey, you want to sit and talk for an hour and 40 minutes? And I talk to all sorts of people where I get them on the podcast, but you wouldn't have that. You wouldn't call them up and go, hey, hey, Rich, you want to talk for 40 minutes about your trip to the Cumbers and Toltec? You just wouldn't do that. And yet with the podcast, you can call people up and say, hey, let's get on the podcast, and talk about this or talk about that.
Well, and I think there's a lot of sides to this. It's one of the things I think A Mother's Life has taught us as a hobby is that there's room for discussion. There's room for disagreement. There's room for growth. There's room for relationships. And these are all things that we've experienced in our own lives in the hobby. We everybody's got contacts in the hobby that, that's too weathered. You look like a junkyard. Or, boy, that's not weathered enough. It looks too new. That's not even modeling. You're just buying something out of a box and putting it on a shelf. Everybody hears complaints, right? But A Modeler's Life has taught us that the hobby is yes, of course there's going to be complaints. What the hobby is a platform to have complaints and use it as a reason to make your own hobby more enjoyable for yourself, to grow your hobby for yourself and for the people around you by learning from some of these disagreements.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with having a disagreement.
No, there's not. There actually, if you can find the right people, I mean, there's nothing better than having a discussion with people that has an opposing view. It's like we talked once before. It's really easy to sympathize with your friend. Like if your friend is having a bad day or there's a health issue or whatever it is that's happening in their life, it's really easy to sympathize with a close friend. If you really want to find out if you're a close friend to somebody, when they have something to cheer about, that's when you find out, because you may not have the same political views as your friend. And if they're really happy about something that's occurred and you want to truly be a friend, you've got to be happy with them. You got to put your own personal views and thoughts aside and be happy with them. And, it's like, so, I mean, it's a great opportunity to find out, like, like you and I, our famous argument on the podcast. I don't really edit much of anything that we talk about anymore because it's all fun stuff to listen to. And it's no different than I was going to tell you ahead of time about my observation about the Dickie V thing, and I just never got around to it. And we just talk about it on the air. It totally unrehearsed. You didn't even know I was going to say it. But it's like we have the discussion about it right on the air, and it's like really cool stuff. I mean, it's cool.
It's very authentic. I think it's what it is it's very transparent, which has always been a long goal of the AML, is transparency. And look, I was actually going to say earlier, like it's nice to hear your voice, my friend. Yeah. It's been a while since we've talked live. 2023 has just been just a remarkable year. There's so much to unpack about 2023 in the hobby, in my own personal life, some of which we've explored in the past, and much more of which we're going to get to as time goes on here. Certainly in your life as well, as we've talked about, we've texted about a couple times. There's a lot of moving parts. It's the hobby is just it's growing.
Oh, it's just
and not just in size. It's growing in intensity. It's growing in depth. And you look at some of the other podcasts that are out there, and I was listening to the show a couple days ago, and it's true. We've got a lot of friends in other parts of the hobby that are doing magazines, that are publishing books, that are doing different podcasts, that are part of the AML. Now, the biggest and I would argue the most universal of the podcasts in model railroading. There is room for all of it. It's only getting better, guys.
Oh yeah,
Where else in life can you look? Where else in life can you look and say that it's only getting better?
Yeah, I think that's a great point you made. We've been trying for years to figure out. We talk about the growth of the hobby, blah 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 blah. But I think the right word is intensity. It's the intensity of the hobby that is growing at an uncontrollable rate. The intensity of the people in the hobby it is growing at almost an uncontrollable rate, and the byproduct of that is the whole hobby grows.
It grows, and it grows in remarkable and unforeseen ways. I mean, you look at, what Chris Palomeri is doing with home shops. You look at Garden State model. You look at Upstate custom models. You look at Scale Sound Solutions. You look at what Tom Schmieder's doing on his Lackawanna layout. You look at, the whole operating community. These regional meets where we've got operating sessions. If you wanted to operate every weekend, you could do it. Almost anybody can learn operations, start to get around the regional layouts, build some operations into their own model railroad, and start to grow that community today. It's all of it is right in front of each of us. And I think that's just a really exciting opportunity.
Well, yeah, like the other day, a few weeks ago, Brad Williamson had a remote operating session from his home in Crater, Pennsylvania there.
Better known as Jersey Shore, right?
Oval. Well, he actually lives in Oval.
Oh, well, Oval, right. Yes, right, exactly. But, very close to Jersey Shore, PA, for all of you travelers of Interstate 80.
Exactly.
Yes. And Brad, I love the discourse and the friendship I developed with Brad Williamson, an early supporter of the Onondaga Cutoff, and a guy that always, not only do I smile, but I think. And he's a public servant. He's also a rugged individualist and someone that I think has a lot to offer. Just he's part of things getting better. Here's a good guy trying to do the right thing.
Well, yeah, and he's a classic example of the intensity. 3 years ago, he thought he was a lone wolf in the hobby. Now he's got so many friends and acquaintances and people that he knows, and he's listened to you, and he takes a stab. Now he's doing remote operations, and I mean, let's face it, Brad's not the sharpest knife in the drawer, and.
Good Lord. Some things don't change here on the old AML.
Well, him and I...
And, the busting of the nards is part of that, so to speak.
We trade insults via text. We just basically insult each other on a semi-ongoing basis. And it's not that hard for me because, let's face it, when they dropped off the skid of bricks, half of them were missing on his load.
Look, he's just one of those guys, and Brad, I hope you're coming to Springfield this year. I'm very excited. Thanks to Lionel's good graces and the graciousness of Jim Sacerdoti and the whole Amherst Society. Springfield, talk about something that's intense, Lionel.
Oh yeah,
Springfield is on the horizon like a distant ship, and here we come, man. It's going to be another weekend of incredible, awesome chaos.
It is, and we have years ago I started staying at the Hampton Inn in Enfield, Connecticut, which is literally like 7 miles from but it was like $30 a night cheaper, and it was Hampton Inn. But I think literally half the hotel is filled with AML folks because we offhandedly call it the official AML hotel, and it's like. Everybody and his brother's staying there. And you wanted me to get you a pass, didn't you, for the show?
That I'm not sure how that works now. Now
I get
yes. You. I mean, last year the answer it was great.
Just simply say yes.
Yes.
Well, it's $82.
Okay.
If you're going to be
I thought you said you were going to get it for me.
Yeah, if you're going to be my straight man, you got to, you just simply yes would do. Well, you know what?
But I've heard you give these away for free.
You know what? I'll charge Rich $164, and you can have yours.
Rich will be thrilled, I'm sure.
What was I going to say? Oh yeah. So how I got going down this Dickie V road was you and I think you're right. This is Fireside Chat number 15. On number 14, you and I were talking about Springfield. I believe if it wasn't on the podcast, you and I had a conversation at some point about Springfield. And I offhandedly said, because you were just finishing up your next book, which is called.
Well, it's still being a little debated, and it depends on which book you're talking about. But
your next Kalmbach book.
My next Kalmbach book is going to be the design and operation of yards for model railroaders.
Right. It's a kind of a redo of Andy Sprandio's first book, is it not?
Can you believe that I get to do that?
No.
Like, let's just a side column, a sidebar, as they call it in the Kalmbach world. Andy Sprandio is a guy that I've admired my whole life. He operated on every awesome model railroad. He was a proficient yardmaster everywhere he went. He was an optimist. He could write well. He just a remarkable character that was able to touch so many different people. And I get to do a redo of his yard book. Like, pinch me, I think.
Yeah.
Because it's hard to imagine that that's where we are right now, but here we are. So I am so grateful for the opportunity that Eric White, the editor of Model Railroader magazine, and Kalmbach, David Popp, all the guys there have given me to take a shot at the next generation of yard book for Kalmbach. It's very exciting.
Do you think there's any photos of Rapido trains?
Your fast track to model railroading fun?
Rapido trains, your fast track to model railroading fun.
In the book?
I can guarantee you that there are.
Okay, cool.
Yes.
Excellent.
Yes. As a matter of fact. And it goes without saying that one of the parts of the golden generation here of model railroading is that you've got Rapido doing specific models of specific trains, and you've got other manufacturers doing specific models of specific trains. Conrail, my chosen prototype here on the Onondaga Cutoff, Conrail, we're having a golden age of Conrail modeling, but I'm going to argue that David Hyde is having a golden age of MKT modeling, and that Chris Atkins is having a golden age of early Burlington Northern modeling. All of us that have modeled generations of trains that we all sort of consider to be secondary for the last 15 or 20 years, it's only getting better for all of us, because these manufacturers are coming out with stuff that was a dream even 10 years ago.
Right. Well, and that's part of what I'm I'm talking about is, like, in reality, if I was being completely honest with you, is I'm pretty envious that you're writing your second book for Kalmbach, because I never got around to doing that. So I'm as much envious as anything, except if I'm a real friend, if I'm a true friend, I'm as excited about it for you and your success as you are. And that's, I think, kind of what the point I was trying to make before. And if you embrace your close friend's excitement, it actually starts to become a fun thing, because it's almost like you're doing it yourself.
This is a topic on which I put a lot of mental time into, not just the last couple months, but really the last, a good chunk of my life. It's a constant battle. Life is a constant psychological battle with yourself.
You think?
Right? Oh my God. we touched on this, not recently, but we have touched on this. Yeah. I wish there was an easy way out. One of my favorite musical artists, Tom Petty, one of his most famous songs, he played it at almost every concert, was called I Won't Back Down. He wrote it on his 1987 album, Full Moon Fever. And, the chorus, it's, hey, baby, there ain't no easy way out. And I don't know that there's an easy way out for any of us that are paying attention. Any of us that are consciously trying to be involved and move things forward. Because the easy fruit's gone. Other people take that before we even see it, and it's out the window. What's left is for the rest of us to grit our teeth, get a little dirt under our fingernails, and mud on our shoes, and keep on going. And I really firmly believe that this is the next step for you and I in life, and I think for everybody else also in their passions, their pursuits, their careers, their families. What are you going to do to make it a little bit better? How are you going to figure out what to do next to take it a little bit beyond where it's been and make it a little bit better for other people to join you? How are you going to bring people together? And keep that ball rolling.
That's my thing about, you're a cog in the machine, and if you don't do your part, we're all incredibly tiny cogs in a giant machine. But if you don't,
but you can also be a huge cog in your friend's machine.
Oh, absolutely,
a huge cog. And this is but this is the paradox, right? This is the dark and light, the yin and the yang of the whole thing. Is if you are jealous of your friend, or you feel like you're missing out on something because your friend was able to do something you weren't, or got invited to something that you didn't get invited to, or was successful where you weren't successful, that jealousy, that resentment, the dark side of that, there's a tremendous amount of power in that. And appreciating that for what it is requires a tremendous amount of selflessness. You have to surrender. It's okay to be upset about these things. It's okay to feel sad or feel left out. What's yours is to figure out how you're going to take the next step. So what can you do when you feel left out, when you feel sad, you feel like you failed, you feel like you could have done better? What are you going to do to make it better? And, it's been years of a lot of, I'm not afraid to admit, therapy, a lot of hard reflection with good friends, a lot of beers and late nights, and trying to just figure out what's the goal, what's our direction here. And the bottom line is that it revolves around other people. The way you can think as global as you'd like, but the way you start is local. You have to do something for the person next to you. What can you do for the person next to you? What step can you take? What cement obligation can you fulfill? And so and just to finish, and I don't mean to interrupt, but I guess I'm on a bit of a roll.
Well, that's fine. That's fine. That's why you're doing. And you know what? I always cut you off when I think you're kind of starting to repeat, and you're not repeating. You're making a very good point. I'm excited because I have a counterpoint to your point.
Well, the point to finish my little point here is that if it wasn't for you and other wisdom keepers in my world, and for the AML Nation, we've talked about this on the Patreon channel quite a bit, but wisdom keepers in my world are people I can trust with all of what's on my mind, and I can expect an honest reflection back. And that's not necessarily neutral. It's not unjaded. It just means that I can expect good, honest feedback from the person's perspective. Those people are wisdom keepers. They are people I look to in deep thought, times of struggle, but also times of great success. And I want feedback. How does this come across? How can I improve it? What can be different? What could go better? And Lionel, you as a wisdom keeper of mine, I wouldn't have taken on a second book challenge if it wasn't for your encouragement. If it wasn't for Heath Hoffmeister's encouragement, if it wasn't for Eric White's willingness to take another risk on me. So I feel a lot of gratitude towards you, and towards these other wisdom keepers that have pushed me in this direction. Tony Custer was the reason I wrote the first one. And I never would have considered myself someone that should be writing books at this age, at this stage of my career and my hobby. So all of it fills me with a tremendous amount of gratitude.
And the point I wanted to make is, you said in Tom Petty's song, "There's no easy way out." And I think probably because there's an age difference, and probably because I've had a lot of dark days myself over the last few years, and a lot of soul searching, and a lot of trying to figure out what the whole point is. And I don't think there needs to be any dark days. I really don't. I think just a matter of getting up and trying to make a difference, or just trying to get through the day as best you can. We don't need to have dark days. We just need to realize that it's a journey, and some parts of the journey are just a straight line, just a narrow road down a flat piece of land that there's not a whole lot to see. But if you don't keep moving, you're not going to get to the end of, you're not going to get to your destination. It's life is not, it's that old saying, it's not the destination, it's the journey. And I truly have come to believe that, it doesn't have to be hard. you're going to have, everybody's going to, I find, you can't go through 24 hours without, you're going to be disappointed in something, or you're going to get down. You're going to, to the point where you're just like, geez, can I not catch a break? And in that same 24 hours, something's going to happen that's going to make your, whatever the chemicals are that makes you feel better. And in that same 24 hours, you're going to have some laughs. I mean, if you have a day where you have emotions that make you feel down, and you have emotions that make you feel happy, and emotions that make you feel like things are going your way, that's a full day. You've had a full day. And that's I think where a lot of people miss the point. Life is not just this constant euphoric trip. Like, something that constantly irritates me no end anymore is 8 years ago, I was like just happy to be standing in the wrong line at Costco. Now here I am. I'm like, damn, I'm in the wrong line at Costco.
But that's the core of it right there. Okay. Darkness. It's not that it's necessary, right? I'm not saying that you have to have dark days, but I am saying that dark days happen. And I will argue that it's not that dark days have to happen, it's that they do happen. Yeah. And you can either embracing that darkness. It's okay to be frustrated about being at the wrong line in Costco. It's frustrating. That's a human, honest emotion. There's nothing wrong with being frustrated with that, even given what you've dealt with, even given what you've been through. It's okay to be frustrated when your turkey is too dry on Thanksgiving.
Yeah. And if you
okay to be frustrated. Damn it, I just drove down the road and gas is 15 cents cheaper. But yesterday it was cheaper at the place I just got it.
Yeah. And that's a classic. That's a classic example, because you probably put 10 gallons of gas in your car. Let's say, for argument's sake, you put 10 gallons of gas in your car. Okay, so you missed out on saving $1.50. And yet, because of the society we live in and the way it's fed to you in these giant numbers, you're like, geez, it's 15 cents a gallon cheaper. And if you stop for a minute and go, that's $1.50.
Right. Lionel, your whole day can get ruined by something that's $1.50.
Yeah.
Like when you let yourself get frustrated about that, your whole day can change. And there's nothing wrong with being frustrated. Frustration is again, it's a human emotion. It's fine. But that's where the hobby comes into this, right? Is that when you're frustrated, you can always think about what you did last night in the hobby. I replaced the wheels on an old Atlas U23B. I mean, an Atlas U23B probably from 1993 or 94 that I bought used at a train show in 96 or 97. And I ran it so much on the Onondaga cutoff that I wore the chrome off the wheels and the raw brass was showing. And so it picked up every speck of dirt and it never ran well. Well, I made an order to Atlas. Lately, they have a very good parts department. You can call up and you can get whatever you need. And so they said, it's going to be, $4 a wheel set or $3 a wheel set with the gear or whatever, and it'll fit your model. That's fine, but it's going to be $12.95 for shipping. And I'm like, well, all right, well, you might as well send me, I don't know, send me 24, send me 30 wheel sets. Eventually I'm going to use these things and they can sit in a bag until I use them. And it's not a big deal. You build up an inventory of parts and, so on and so forth. So, but, replacing those Atlas wheels, it's a really satisfying thing to be able to return a model that's operated, that's special to you. You've had it for years. Now you're making it run better by replacing a simple part. Yeah, there's a little finagling and a little time that's required, but it's a one evening project and you're done. And then when you're sitting in line at Costco and it takes 3 times as long as the one next to you that you almost chose, but you didn't, or the gas that's 15 cents more expensive a gallon, and so you wasted $1.75 on your. But you're driving away, and it's like, but man, I'm so excited about that U23.
Yeah.
Like, I replaced. What a hobby we have that can shift your gears like that. Psychologically, it opens doors to satisfaction.
Yeah. Again, I refer to Brad Williamson, who, again, let's face it, we all know that his elevator doesn't go to the top, and it got jammed between a couple of floors somewhere near the top of the shaft. But that's neither.
Brad. Brad. I don't know what you did to Lionel last night, but I'm sure I'm going to hear about it after this one.
But he's a classic example of what the hobby is for people, and what has happened in the last 5 or 10 years is that he now has the Iron City N scale guys that he hangs out with all the time. He's doing remote operating sessions. His hobby, he's coming to Springfield. I think I sort of half talked him into it, which I realize now was a mistake on my part, because he'll be there. But I'm sorry, Brad. Brad, we're having fun. He's a good guy. Yeah, I love guys that you can just... But I instructed him like I instructed you. It's no fun insulting him if he doesn't insult me back. Which he's getting very good at, by the way.
Good Lord.
But yeah, like the hobby is... And so, you can have... The hobby is like... It's like busting a giant pimple on your chin. Like it just constantly relieves pressure. Or... it gives you something else to think about. You can't figure out a particular problem electrically, or you can't figure out a track plan there, a yard, how to fit in a yard, or, you need more, you need more pipe cars from Otter Valley Railroad, or whatever it is. And it just is this I believe the hobby is a constant, pressure valve that relieves pressure.
I agree. And the Otter Valley pipe cars, I wish they were my era. Lauren, anything you can do before 1994, we need to talk, because there's a lot that we need in the 90s. Beautiful stuff. Beautiful stuff. But Lionel, do you have to start with the example of a pimple? Dude, there's so many good things to talk about.
Well,
come on.
Relieving pressure. Okay.
Yeah, I get it. We all get it. Thanks. That's wonderful. Come on, man.
Well,
you can't talk about yard book. I appreciate the yard reference. That's true. Yards are all about keeping a track open so that you can always accept another incoming train, keeping things moving. Moving is good. Did you have to start with the pimple?
Well, when we did our table reading and we reviewed the script for tonight's show, you had your chance to put in your 2 cents.
No, we didn't talk about this pimple thing, man. And we didn't talk at all. This is...
Let's tell everybody the truth. Every show is completely scripted, and there's we get together and...
Yeah, right.
So let me tell you how I got to the Dickie V thing. So we're talking about your second book. What's it called again? Yards?
It's going to be... It's basically going to be, and again, it's still sort of in flux, but it's going to be a book that is based on the design and operation of yards. And I think it'll probably be called officially the Model Railroader Guide to Design and Operation of Yards.
Okay, so let's everybody remember that. So when do you think it's going to come on sale?
I think we're going to see it probably March, April of 2024. And I have to admit, I'm really excited about this one. The manuscript went in about a month ago. Yards are one of those universals in railroading. Every railroad's got yards. And in the first book, Signals and Interlockings, Model Railroaders Guide to Signals and Interlockings. Signals and interlockings are super important for people modeling mainline railroading this side of about 1925 or 1930, which means that it's not all model railroads. There's a large number of model railroads that don't have signals or interlockings, and which, and again, that's fine. This next effort, though, this yard book, yards, there is no railroad without a yard. Even one siding at the end of a short line is generally functioning as a yard. So all of us have yards, and therefore this book offered an opportunity to speak to a lot more model railroaders, a lot more people interested in railroading than a signal book did.
Yeah,
and so I'm really excited about that.
Yeah, like this is a book that every model railroader should have, because it'll spark ideas when you're trying to design a yard, or whether it's a small yard, a small 3-track yard, or whatever. I'm assuming the book has a lot of explanations about how yards work and the purpose of yards and blah blah blah, that kind of thing.
That is correct. That is correct. And I think what's exciting about this version of a yard book is that, just, thanks to the luck of the draw and thanks to circumstance, I've got access to a lot of professional railroaders that work in and around railroad yards. And so there are sidebars, there are extensive writings in this book about from a variety of experts in rail planning and in rail engineering, people that have watched trains all over the country, people that have researched yards, people that have been part of consultants that help design railroad yards. There's 6 or 7 different sidebars in this book that are by experts besides me who know yards in and out, and they know certain aspects of yards. And all of that data is going to be in this book. So this book really is a foundational It's a foundational piece for people that want to learn more about how yards are designed and how they work. And it has a list of resources in the back that I think is probably more important than the book itself. It's really a remarkable resource, I think, for people thinking about model railroads, people that have model railroads and want to know how to make their yard work a little bit better, or what small changes you can make to make your yard more effective. All of that, the seeds of all of that are in this book.
Exactly. I'm looking forward to it. I think, honestly, this is a book I'm going to be much more interested in than the Signals book. And I was very interested in that because my pal wrote it. But I think this book I'm actually going to buy and have as a reference book more than anything.
And I thank you. And I'm really excited as much as anything about, the last chapter. Like, it's one of the things that yards, I think, start to open up is a larger discussion about not just model railroading, but railroading in general. And because railroading is so instrumental in Western society, not just the history of it, but the modern day functioning of it. It's what keeps railroad yards working is camaraderie. There's no place else on a railroad where you see such an integration between different departments, different groups of people coming together to make something happen.
That's kind of an interesting point I'd never thought of. It is because when the train's out on the line, it's the crew and the train and that's it. But when you get to the yard, you got to work in collaboration with a lot of different departments and people on the railroad.
And it's not just transportation. The railroad's got 3. Like a good roller bearing. Here's a weird analogy for everybody. Like a good roller bearing with those 3 bolts that rotate around and around and around and around and around as you're sitting trackside and you watch a train go by. Every railroad's got a triad of departments that makes it work. And that's transportation, who moves the trains, gets the crews assigned, comes up with service planning, what have you. Mechanical, who maintains the trains, makes sure the bearings are lubricated, the fuel is filled, the cabs are cleaned, it's in a state of good repair. You figure out the signal apparatus is working, all these things. And then infrastructure, who makes sure your track is engaged, your rail is up to date, your ties are replaced, your signals are lit and functional, your overhead catenary where it exists is energized and in a state of good repair, your stations are set, they're clean, they're looking good. Those 3 departments, transportation, mechanical, and infrastructure, are what make railroads work. And there's no place like a railroad yard to watch all 3 work together. This book talks about those things. It talks about the interrelation of all those three things. And with the experts that I was able to incorporate into the text, into the photographs, you're going to read about it. You're going to see it. And it's going to tell you, it's going to give you ideas on how you can work this into your railroad better than you did. And how we've been able to do it here on the Onondaga Cutoff, but how it's also done on the prototype. And there's a synergy to that, and the camaraderie that comes from those three groups working together. This is something I really feel very, very grateful to be exposed to where I work and around railroads in general. And we embody that on the Onondaga Cutoff during an operating session. You've got all three of those groups working together. And that's how stuff gets done at this level. You have to work together. So this book is a reflection on that. And I think to even a larger degree than the Signal book was. So I think it's going to be much more universally applicable than I'm really, in case you can't tell, I'm really excited about it.
I couldn't tell.
Yeah, I didn't think so.
The only problem I'm having is Davey A isn't working for me, so I think we're going to have to stick with Uncle Dave.
Davey A? I haven't heard Davey A.
Well,
I've heard Davey.
Well, no, but Dickie V, Dick Vitale.
Dickie V.
Davey A, Dave Abelys. Davey A doesn't. Davey A doesn't work.
No, it doesn't. I don't think that even works a little bit.
No, it doesn't even work a little bit. But Uncle Dave works really well.
It does. Okay, I agree.
So anyways, so you and I are having a discussion about Springfield. And we're talking about the booth and the table, and we're getting excited, blah, blah, blah. And I said, geez, in 2025, after your second book comes out from Kalmbach, I said, you'll be able to have both books on the table at Springfield. And I said, it'll just look even that much better when you got a couple of books that people can look at. And you offhandedly said to me, yeah, maybe I should bring along my book about the, let me see, let me reference it again. Don't say anything. I'm scrolling. Oh, there it is. It's you said, yeah, maybe I should bring in the copy of my Guarding the Chicago Line book. And I said, well, who wrote that? And you went, oh, it's a book I wrote that I just made of like 4 or 5 copies for my friends. And then to paint a word picture, I usually slump in my chair, and I sit up in my chair and I go, what? He said, yeah. This is a book it's a collection of photos that I took over the years and I call it Guarding the Chicago Line, and it's a book that I got self-published, but I only made 4 or 5 copies. So I thought maybe I would bring that book. I'm like, you have another book? Yeah. I'm like, what are you doing?
That is, for the record, that's exactly how that conversation went. Like I got a bunch of question marks on a text message several times.
Yeah.
That's Lionel speak for, what are you doing?
And so on the last fan 69 or whatever it was, I'm telling the guys, I said, yeah, Dave's got this book called Guarding the Chicago Line, and it's a photo book. It's like a coffee table book. And I said, he needs to bring that. And then immediately everybody's saying, well, did he make copies? I'd like one of those. And I said, well, yeah, I got to talk him into making like 40 copies of it. And everybody basically starts laughing and said, well, they'll all be gone before the show opens to the public. And I went, yeah, you're probably right. Like, that's a problem where we have now that we got to discuss, because people are going to want this book, Dave. And like people tonight, like, are you prepared? How much is this book? How much are you selling it for?
It'll be $40.
And what is it exactly? Give people an idea what it is exactly.
Yeah, this is something, it's basically a group of photographs, probably, I don't know, 26, 30, 32. I don't even know the exact count. Photographs that I made on a couple different trips over the years, including some, there's a handful, there's just a couple shots from the 90s in college. And there's a bunch more from trips in 2006, and then in the 2014 to 16 era, of the signals, the New York Central searchlight signals that were mounted on either bridges or bracket masts or posts or such along the former New York Central to water level route main line around Syracuse and out towards Buffalo as well, Buffalo, New York. And, growing up, these are signals that I always saw whenever my parents or my uncles would take me up to watch trains up there when I went to visit family. And so I've got a lot of, very innocent and excited and full of wonder moments, watching these signals change. And then going to school at Syracuse and getting out there by myself, introducing some new rail fans to it, going back and revisiting, taking my kids to see it a couple times. These signals were very much a constant through my life. And my life had a lot of ebbs and flows. It had some great times and some challenging times. A lot of difficult times with a mother that passed away from cancer and a sister that passed away from a very complicated vascular disease that she was born with, that got worse and worse over time. It's a long story and something we can reflect on at a different time. But even through those dark hours, those dark times, I was able to go out and see these familiar signals and watch trains come by, whether they were painted blue for Conrail or it was a foreign power run through, which was always exciting, or even after it changed over to CSX, which it is today, and to watch locomotives come by these signals, all of which were gone by the end of 2017. Ironically, the person that built models of these signals, or well, I should say that helped me implement the models of these signals on the model railroad here on the Onondaga Cutoff, the same guy that managed the installation of the signals and the systems on the OC is the project manager for the signal company that replaced them on the prototype simultaneously. It was at the same time. Unbelievable. So he was part of these trips to go document the last of these searchlights in 2014 and 2016. I combined that with some of my other pictures and put together it was really a thank you to him and to the 2 or 3 friends that came along with me, as well as to my family who tolerated me being away for so much time, to document some of these signals and to go up there and experience them in their environment in the winter, in the defining season, to catch them during snowfalls and sunsets and sunrises and, as trains passed. And it was an emotional tribute almost to old mechanical friends, these, not to get too sentimental about it, but it meant a lot to me to be able to go up and do these things. So I put this photo book together and I sent it to the friends and everybody was pleased. And that was that until you said, you got to make sure you have some copies of a book for Springfield. And I'm like, okay, well, I guess I could bring this other one. And you're like, what?
Yeah.
And so here we are. But it's a sentimental little piece. It's, guarding the Chicago line. It's a photo tribute to the searchlights of the New York Central across central New York. It's all my photographs, my captions to the photographs and a few excerpts of text that I've woven into the whole thing. And yeah, I'll sell them for $40 a piece for, I think it's got to be about 30 pages. I really should know that number, but I don't. But it's a nice little piece. It's a beautiful hardcover book with glossy pages. The colors are beautiful. They've really turned out nicely, and I'm excited. I'm excited to see how people get into it.
And I'm assuming there's descriptions or captions for each photo.
Every photo's got captions on where we are, what we're doing, what the date is, what you're looking at. And then there's a few pages of full text reflections on not just a photograph, but the feelings behind it, the energy behind it, the history behind it in some cases. And so it's exciting. I think it's a nice little, it's a nice little cross section. It's a slice through the heart of what the Chicago line was to me in those years.
And so now I guarantee you right now, there's a few people listening to this podcast that are going, oh, I'm not going to Springfield. I wouldn't have minded getting a copy of that book, especially if it's autographed. So now what do we do? Thoughts?
Well, I think I don't know. You have more experience with this than I do. I guess they can
Email you.
They can email me.
You go.
Yep.
You can go to the over the next week or so. Go to the post office. Find out what the postage is. What?
This is. Yeah, I have to admit, I haven't thought much about
Well,
this.
I know you haven't. That's why I sent you a text the other day saying you're so innocent.
You did send me that. I was like, whatever.
It's like credit to you. I understand. I can't. I watched this whole hour and a half documentary about Dickie V, and he had the same basic attitude because what people don't understand. It's you don't know what it's like to be you because you're you. It's like you can't understand how people would be excited about this book because you're doing it anyways. And so I understand how it's hard to be, just like I have trouble imagining that this podcast is so popular and 70 people show up at Tomstock and they travel from all over the world. And I'm kind of standing there with this, like, why are you here? Because it's like,
well, it's actually because Rich Wisniewski's there.
Yeah.
That's the reason everybody came to Tomstock, and because Tom did a great job organizing.
Oh, absolutely. It certainly wouldn't have been because Brad Williamson showed up for the dinner. This is primary.
What a collection! This is such a great collection of characters.
It is. That's the beauty of it. I think that's the beauty of it. I think because of my personality, you have to be a certain type of individual to enjoy the camaraderie that we've created with each other.
Oh, it's taken on a life of its own. It certainly started with your personality and your desire to push a product out there and to see if people would listen. And that's the foundation. And now it's grown in leaps and bounds because you're accepting a bunch of really remarkable characters that have all added to that inertia. It's just gotten bigger and better.
Yeah, and I mean, that's what people have to realize about their own lives is things happen because they happen. Like, I think we have a tendency to, even I, like, I'm like, why is forget about it. It happened because at the same time, I found out about the cancer and it's like, I didn't really care if anybody listened or not. And I certainly wasn't going to be, change my personality to be on the air. And I think all those things combined, it was a perfect storm. And that's what people need to do is stop trying to figure out why things are and just be. Like some days, sometimes you're going to buy gas at the wrong place. It's like, it just is.
And I agree. Like if we take the whole thing too seriously, we quickly lose some of the magic, some of the wonder. And that's the point of this Guarding the Chicago Line book. And I'll have a bunch of them at Springfield for sure at the Onondaga Cutoff table, and they'll be available from me leading up to that. I guess they can email me at my little Onondaga Cutoff at gmail.com. That's an email address.
Is that the email address, Onondaga Cutoff?
Yeah, ONONDAGA CUTOFF, Onondaga Cutoff with no spaces at gmail.com. And I'm certainly glad to email or to return an email, tell you I got your message, and we can look at shipping, case by case, and $40 for the book, and I can certainly send those out.
Yeah,
over the next couple of weeks. That's no problem. So
there you have it, folks. If you want a copy of Dave's latest book, Guarding the Chicago Line, which is really a story of his, it's a story of a part of his life through the lens and the subject of railroading. I love that. It's a kind of a story of your life through railroading.
Yeah, and it's a snapshot, and if there's appetite for this, then there's appetite. There's other places that energy can go, and I think what's exciting about it is, like you're talking about with, some of the different, characters on the podcast and the energy of the AML and the way, Rapido trains and has embraced the culture of this, and all the whole hobby is getting better. There's room for the niches. What moves us to be rail fans? What moves us to model railroad? And what are the connections emotionally to that? This book is, I created it again to say thank you to a couple close friends that encouraged me to make the trip and that made the trip with me, and to be able to share those sentiments, those emotions through the photographs and the captions and through the couple little write-ups in the book with everyone that's a privilege. That would be wonderful.
That's very cool.
It would be wonderful.
It must have taken a fair amount of time to create it, write captions and all that. I mean, it was a excellent thank you to folks that, it had to take you some amount of time to create it and make it and write it.
Yeah. Well, it took a lot of time, and it costs every bit of those $40. even just to get it printed. That doesn't count. I'll bet you I put 70 hours into this book, and that doesn't count the trips to take the pictures.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, books are a lot of work, but I don't know that there's a better way to present yourself in one fell swoop, and present what it is that compels you about a certain topic. It really allows people to, on their own leisure, with a hardcover book. I mean, it's a nice looking book, and I still can't believe that you can do this for $40. It actually blows my mind. It's a beautiful hard. I remember paying 20 years ago much more than this for hardcover books, and this one's admittedly is considerably shorter than a lot of the ones you could buy in the Railfan Press back then. But it's also personal. This is a personal effort, and I would be very happy to share that with people as time goes forward.
I think you're going to need more than 40 books. I was thinking about this. I was thinking I should put some sort of financial stake into this so that you're not taking the full load, because I'm thinking you kind of need like double that number to get you through Springfield and people that are going to be contacting you and would like you to mail out a copy. I'm thinking you're going to need somewhere south of 80 and north of 40. Well,
and we'll see. We'll see. I can reach out, and we can reprint, of course, at some point. But it makes me smile to think about it, because it's a special point for me. It's something I think that other people who watch trains will appreciate, because it's going to evoke the kind of emotions that they feel too. Stuff that they've dealt with. There's something special about being trackside. It's a very, and you said it before, there's an innocence to it. There's a simplicity to it. It's like going fishing if you're a fisherman.
Yeah.
Or hunting if you're a hunter. It's not whether or not you come back with the perfect catch. It's the act of going out there, doing what you love, being in a place where you can reflect a little bit with yourself, think about what you can do better in life, and think about things you've done well in life. Maybe you can share that with other people. That's what it's about.
Do you have any recollections of any of these times when you were putting the book together, or as you look through the book now? Do you have any recollections of any particular times when, you're the thing with your mother, what you were going through that, and your sister? Like, do you have any good memories of standing trackside and kind of feeling the pressure ease a bit because you were away from it all? And
oh man, 100%. I mean, I went to Syracuse. I graduated high school in 95 in New Jersey, and was accepted up to Syracuse University. My mom died that May, a month before I graduated from high school. And it was obviously a real hard June and July, hard summer, weird summer. Simultaneously, I was in love with a girl I met in high school at the same time, or a little earlier than that. So complicated emotions, a lot of stuff moving around. And going to Syracuse in the end of 95, my dad was full of support for going to school and, focus on it, join the marching band. And I was able to do all those things. It was great. But it wasn't until a couple of years later that I was able to have a car on campus. And so it was the fall in 95 that I went to. So probably it was the spring. No, it was the fall in 96. Yeah, fall in 96. So the end of my second year that I was able to have a car on campus. And what that opened. Now, before that, I had my bicycle. And so I would bike up to watch the trains. And, that was a 7 or 8 mile ride through the city. That was an adventure. But even, yeah, especially in the wintertime, I rode it one day after some snow.
Really?
That was oh my God. That's how you learn not to do things a second time. But once I was able to have, my minivan that I bought from my dad before that, up there on campus, I was able to get a parking spot. And then I was able to spend, evenings and weekends watching trains when I felt like it. And when you really get, when I'd really get down about, my sister at that time was still alive. She was actually going to school at Ithaca College. And, those weekends, after a football game at Syracuse or whatever, I'd have Saturday or Sunday free, whatever it was, and be able to do those trips. I spent a lot of late nights out watching trains. I would just drive the minivan out by myself, turn the scanner on, someplace up by a signal bridge, west of Syracuse, and wait. And a couple different times, and I've always been a freight train fan, but a couple different times, late at night, 10:30, 11 o'clock, the westbound Lakeshore Limited from New York to Chicago, the Amtrak train, overnight train, was due. And in that era, it ran with a bunch of old school heritage equipment, old diners and coaches and stuff, some amphitheaters mixed in, a bunch of head-end mail and parcel business, what have you. So it was a pretty big train, 14, 15, 16, 17 cars, depending on the day. 2 or 3 F40s up front, F40 PHs. And west of Syracuse, the speed limits quickly go up to 79. And there was a grade crossing west of Solvay, west of Syracuse, east of a town called Warners, Warner, Warners, New York. Milepost 298 was the signal bridge. And it was a grade crossing right there called the Post Road Grade Crossing. And I would sit there for hours by myself, just reflecting. And, again, I was, 19, 20, 21 years old. So much yet to come, but a lot of baggage, a lot of weight from what I dealt with, in high school and growing up and stuff. And again, I had a great life. I mean,
I get it. I get it. Yeah.
Growing up, I don't mean to sound like I was down in the dumps, because I wasn't. But you get a chance to go out and sit trackside, and you're next to the water level route, a trunk line, one of the arteries of commerce in Western civilization, not just North America, but the world depended on these trains.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point. You go out
there and you'd sit there, right? You'd sit there and you'd wait. And it was dark, and there was, cars would pass occasionally on the road that was, 100 yards away or whatever. And then, from the east, there'd be glow, and then around the corner would come a headlight, and sometimes ditch light, sometimes not, because this is before ditch lights were required. And this Lakeshore Limited would come west at 79 miles an hour, and the intensity of the light would get brighter and brighter. It would pass under the signal bridge at 298. The lights would come on. You could tell what was coming in the other track and in the other directions. And this thing would come by you, and it was like a tornado. I mean, you could just hear the shimmer of the rails as the light got brighter and brighter, and it's a straightaway. So it's coming right at you. You don't hear it until it's right there. And then it goes by like a tidal wave of energy. There's wind and dust and humidity and the lights in the windows, and you see a few silhouettes, and then shoo, and it's gone. In a distant dust, 2 red markers, the signals stay on until the next block is hit, and then they go dark. The grade crossing goes up, and it's back to normal, except that you've just been blown away by the passage of this train. Going someplace with people you'll never know, but they're going someplace exciting. They're going someplace they need to go.
Yeah, that's the thing.
It's just incredible. It's just incredible. So this book does not include any pictures of that particular moment because I was too busy being blown away.
Yeah.
But I do have pictures of the eastbound Lakeshore Unlimited in the train the next morning at some of the same locations. And, that's the sentiment I think a lot of us model railroaders have wrapped up in this hobby. There's so much to share. There's so much good that's come from it for us. And what better way to share it than, sharing an operating session, sharing a model railroad experience, or putting this book together. And again, it was put together for the guys that came with me, but to share it with the greater crowd that's just an honor. That's wonderful. If it works out, that's great.
There's going to be a lot of people that are Dave fans that are going to want the book because they want to add it to their Dave collection. Just, like I want the book just because I want to see what's in it, listening to you talk. And it's going to help people make a connection to who Dave was and what he was doing. And a lot of people are going to want it just because Dave did it. And that's cool.
It's what it is. It's very humbling is what it is.
Well, and it should be humbling. Like there'd be something wrong with you if it wasn't humbling.
Well, but it's to me, it's part of a bigger story because, all of us have struggled. There isn't a human being alive that hasn't felt pain, and pain is a weird thing. Like when you get dumped the first time in high school, right? It's the worst experience of your life. When you lose a parent in high school, it's the worst experience of your life. And I'm going to argue that there's a totally different tiers, but the pain is very similar. And in that pain, there is community. There is coming together. And all of us can share that with each other. If we open that up a little bit, you go out and watch some trains, take some pictures, and then share your pictures with people. Wisdom keepers, people that you trust, are going to know what was behind some of these photographs.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, now, even, I look at the fans' Facebook page. Well, you look at I was just looking at your Facebook page for the Onondaga Cutoff. I mean, you're over 3,000 fans on that thing now.
Yeah, it's exciting. I saw that just a couple of days ago. I'm like, whoa!
Yeah, you're closing.
I think it's great.
Yeah, and you're closing in on 4,000 followers. You got over 3,000 likes and 4,000 followers. I mean, you can't beat it. And it's like you're like way better than you got way more than the fans page does, and it's a pretty popular page. But that just shows you how you're affecting people, and it's like people want to feel your pain so they get to know you better.
Well, and that's the balance of life. There is power in the dark side of things. It sounds like a Star Wars quote or something, but there's a lot of wisdom in that. There's just as much energy in the dark times and the hard parts of life as there is in the good times or the bright parts of life. And by denying yourself the dark side, you're missing a lot of experience. You're missing a lot of opportunity to create some good art. I think a lot of what we do is a reflection of our childhoods and the things that we take from it or wish we had or don't know that we could have had. There's a continuity there. And I think it's there for all of us to explore.
If you didn't have your dark side, you wouldn't be you. I started golfing again. I finally got enough strength back and that I can enjoy myself going around the course. I'll never play as good as I did, but I can enjoy myself now and be out with some guys and stuff like that. And a million years ago, when I was a much better golfer, my buddy wanted to go to a golf school. And I was like, I don't want to do that. But it was in Vermont. And I went, yeah, okay, sure, I'll go with you. And we got there, and it was like a 3-day golf school on this golf course. But it basically rained the entire time. Didn't rain when we first got there, but then, I think that was the Friday, and by the end of the Friday, it was pouring out. And all day Saturday, you couldn't do anything but be inside. But the guy that was assigned to us to be our instructor, there was 4 guys per instructor. The guy that was assigned to us to be our instructor had sold his life to try to make it on the professional tour. He had a restaurant in the suburbs on the outskirts of New York City, somewhere, down there in Newark or whatever you want to call it. And he had sold his restaurant. He had sold everything he owned. He'd gotten separated, and he decided this was the time he was going to make the move and try to become a professional. And, he couldn't make it. He was still struggling. And this was how he made some extra cash, was being at this golf school. And this guy had all these films of people like Ben. Somehow he had acquired these films of some of the golfing greats from the 50s and 60s. And his whole philosophy to the game was, once you hit the ball, it doesn't really matter where it goes because you got to go get it. So if you didn't hit it that great, it really doesn't matter because you got to go hit it and find it and hit it again. It was just this incredibly simplistic way of playing the game, and we ended up setting up a net. He had a net in his apartment. Like, he had this little 1-bedroom or 2-bedroom apartment with a net in the living room, and it was this kind of. And he hit a chord with me because it was the mental aspect. He related golf to life. He just was like, life was golf and golf was life. And like I said, the guy had sold his soul to try to get on the professional tour. And it was a fascinating thing. He was like 32, 33 years old. And I came back from that thing with an entirely different outlook on that. And my handicap, I think before I went, was 14. And by the time the summer was over, it was 7. Because just basically hit it and go find it. If you hit it down the fairway, enjoy the walk. Don't think about where it is. It just stop thinking. Just hit the damn ball. And it was such a great philosophy on life. It's like,
yeah, I think there's a lot to be said for that. And my good friend Heath, he came to an operating session, and he likes trains. He's got a casual interest in trains. I'm trying to think of a good analogy for it, but in lieu of that, at the front of my mind, he's happy to be around the people that love trains. He's interested in industrial architecture, but trains themselves, the specific designations or car types or routes, it's less important to him than just the fact that there's a train there. And one of the things he said after the first time he came to an OC operating session, he said, Dave, he's like, operating sessions are kind of like golf for people that love trains. You can go, and for 4 hours, all you worry about is what you're doing on the railroad. And then you're done, and you go home and you go back to your regular life.
Yeah.
And I think, golf has a wonderful connection to that sort of sentiment where a guy or any person can go and lose themselves in the game, in the rules of the game and the formality of the game, and the history of the game and their own performance in the game. And if you're walking down the fairway, you enjoy the walk.
Yeah.
But you're there for the game. You're there to put your best out there. You're playing against yourself. And we'll see how it goes. And next time we'll do it again. And that's the right operations attitude as well. Yes, you're there in service of, well, there's another whole topic. Maybe for the next Fireside, we can talk about operating sessions and the sentiment in there. But the goal is to be part of something that's larger than what you would do on your own. And I think golf has a lot of that too.
Yeah, and like model railroading. Most model railroads are built by individuals. I mean, something I realized. Well, I've realized it before, but we were having a discussion with somebody. Like model railroads are like snowflakes. There's no two the same. They're all hand built. Every model railroad is hand built. Like an expensive car. It's something. I'm telling you, this hobby's going to grow like crazy because you said it perfectly. That's what we've been trying to figure out. It's that the energy has grown in the hobby. The energy has just exploded in the hobby. That's what the hobby is growing for sure because of social media, but the energy has 10 times multiplied by 10 times. Everybody's connected. I'm connected to Robin Felder in Switzerland and Matt Dawson in Britain and Peter Borchards and Nick Carlson in Switzerland and Martin Jenkins in Australia and people all over the world. Like the sun never sets on the AML Nation. The podcast.
I love that.
Yeah,
that is such a great analogy, but it's a fact.
It's an actual fact. The sun never sets on the AML Nation, and the camaraderie. It's like the best part of Springfield for me is I don't really care that the AML Nation started because of me. I just want to be part of the crowd. I just want to be part of part of the crowd. I just want to.
Boy, if you want to be part of the crowd, Springfield is where it's at.
Exactly. And when
John Sacerdoti has created something, and it's not any one thing. It's everything. It's a little bit of everything. And your tables, the Modler's Life tables at Springfield is just, it's a celebration of model railroading. And you turn around and there's just a million things to do. I mean, and gosh, it's 4 buildings now, right?
Yeah.
I think this year we're going to see more even than we did last year. It's just exciting. It's exciting from left to right. It really is.
And one of the things you can see there really well, it's a great booth, is Rapido Trains.
Your fast track to model railroading fun.
You got to put a little bit more pizzazz in that,
Your fast track to model railroading fun.
If it's N, if it's H-O, the fast track is Rapido.
All right. But I will tell you, I got to go to the Rapido Trains booth for the first time last year. And, take it from me. Now, I've got a bunch of Rapido products on the Onondaga Cutoff. They've done some wonderful Conrail stuff and some 90s stuff that has filled a niche that has been needed for decades. And the whole Rapido Trains team has done a great job bringing some of that to life. So going to their booth it's just an adventure. And at Springfield, they didn't just bring 3 or 4 of their people. Like a lot of manufacturers might bring a handful of their staff. You go to Springfield and Rapido Trains has 90% of their staff at their booth. They've got demo models. They've got samples. They've got running trains. They've got stuff for sale. They've got posters about stuff that's upcoming. They almost always have an announcement. Rapido Trains at Springfield is an adventure. You go to that booth and you're going to meet people that are remarkable, that are actually doing the design for these projects. Look, everybody can always find reasons to complain about everything, and model railroading is no exception. But these are modelers. These are people that care, and they're interested in what you have to say. Even if it's a complaint, it's worth a visit. This is a company, it's just getting better and better and better.
Well,
and
go ahead. You finish, and
I'm just thrilled. I mean, I'm so excited for this C30-7 that they're coming out with. It's going to be it's going to fill a huge hole in the hobby, and I got it. I'm going to have to pull Jason's ear again. I want that C37A. Come on, Jason. But but that said, the C30-7 has so many different examples, so many different applicabilities across different eras, and it hasn't been done. It hasn't been done in modern tooling with modern decoders and sound at all, let alone the lighting. And this is going to be a great release. I'm really, really excited about the C-37.
This is completely off topic. And who isn't the C-37 made by Rapido Trains?
Your fast track to model railroading fun.
Rapido Trains, your fast track to model railroading fun.
All right, but yes, it is. It is made by Rapido Trains, along with a bunch of other fabulous models, which will be on display at the Springfield show.
Absolutely. Oh, and hey, what's the easiest way for people to find your table, the Onondaga Cutoff table? If they want to buy the book, Guarding the Chicago Line. I love that. How did you come up with that title? That seems like a little bit above your pay grade.
Well, Brad Williamson and I were talking, and and Brad, I don't believe that. That's Lionel talking. But I was, what are signals? What are signals on a prototype railroad except for, they're what give you the permission and the authority and the protection. So they're guarding train movements. They're guiding and guarding train movements. And I thought guarding the Chicago line was a little catchier than guiding the Chicago line.
Yeah, I like it. It's a great title.
So I went with guarding the Chicago line, and I chose, it's all my own photographs, and it, I think it was fun to put together, and I think it's something people will enjoy. So I'm excited. I'm excited to see how it goes.
That's
where the title came from.
A fond tribute to the shirt slights of the New York Central.
Correct.
We'll get. So how do people get it? They go to they email you at onondagacutoff@gmail.com.
Correct. Onondaga Cutoff, ONONDAGACUTOFF
And will you personally autograph these books for folks?
If people are excited about that, each one is individually wrapped by the manufacturer. Okay. But I'm also happy to take the wrapping off and autograph it and send it your way for sure.
All right, that's cool. Completely off topic. Just to show you how this hobby has grown and how social media is going to make this hobby absolutely explode. Is I don't know, 4 months ago, I put them on the list, and now I'm going to track them down. I found this, I don't know even know how I found it, but it's on YouTube, and the guy's name, the title of the YouTube channel is Downey, DOWNIE, Downey Live. That's his, and here's some of the videos. He mostly, it's called Your Friendly Canadian Adventure YouTuber with a Passion for the Most Unique and Interesting Transportations Around the World. Well, primarily, I would say half the videos, like the last video 4 days ago, is first class on Jose Cuervo's tequila train. I rode North America's first hydrogen train, riding Canada's luxury train across the Rocky Mountain Air, riding the world's longest model train track, exclusive first ride on Canada's new trains. I tried the Napa Valley wine train, 5 days on a sleeper train, riding America's failed futuristic transit, 24 hours, 3 fun killers. How do you say that? Fun killer? Those ones that go up and down the hills.
Funiculars.
Yeah, funiculars. But anyways, this is a guy I stumbled across that his videos are primarily about riding trains around the world. And I'm like,
they're all out. We are all out there, as they say.
We are. I'm telling you, man. I know you're struggling with the whole Dickie V analogy, but trust me. I would say this. Would you not agree with this statement that I'm pretty good at identifying where you're going and what you're doing?
I would agree with that statement.
Yeah.
Over the last couple of years, yes, I've been surprised again and again, and and here we are.
Yeah, I'm telling you, buddy, you're going to be the Dickie V of model railroading. You just have that. You have that personality. It's effortless for you. You're not doing anything other than being Dave. Just like Dick Vitale, he wasn't doing anything other than being Dickie Vitale. You know,
That's true.
And you have to. This guy's got. I got to get this guy on the air because he's riding. What's this? Taking a sleeper train to the Arctic Circle. I didn't even know that was a thing. Taking Norway's steepest train to a zip line.
So you're just surfing the internet while we're talking. That's great. Thank you.
Well, I wanted to tell you about it because it fits in with the thing is growing like crazy.
There's no question about it. I mean, yeah, there's, just today I got an email from a guy that does custom models down in Florida, John Madden. He's finished 2 locomotives. I sent him 2 beat up old Kato SD40s, Conrail SD40s that I got, early on in my model railroading hobby, pastime back in probably the 90s, before I had a layout, before I decided on an era or a certain prototype. And they're current, both of those models, both of those specific numbers actually had been rebuilt by 1994 into SD40-2Rs by Conrail's own shops in Altoona, Pennsylvania. Well, this guy does custom models. So I'd seen online that he'd done a few of these for other people. I emailed him. Sure enough, I sent him the 2 Kato SD40s, and he stripped them, kit bashed them, rebuilt them, added a bunch of details, and now they're on their way to Garden State Model Works, where they're going to get their full lighting package. And I'm going to be in receipt before the end of 2023. I'm going to have 2 SD40-2Rs, 16 in the 6900 series, 2 rebuilt SD40-2s. Well, 2 rebuilt SD40s that are now SD40-2Rs. You can't make this up. This is something that would have taken me 30 hours on each of these engines to do. But this guy's done 100 of them. And I firmly believe that as the hobby grows, one of the things we all need to embrace is let experts be experts.
Well, for sure. You're going to
let experts be experts.
Absolutely. You're going to get more out of the hobby if you let some people do some of the work for you.
Yeah.
Who was this person that you found in Florida?
John Madden, used to be called Southern Tier Model Works.
Right.
And he used to live outside Suffern, New York, and makes a hobby of custom building locomotives. All sorts of the rebuilds, the one-offs, custom paint jobs, stuff that was never produced in commercial. He'll kit bash things, paint them and decal them, and it's a custom model builder. So he's retired from Southern Tier, but he still does occasional work on the side. And I was able to convince him to do a pair of SD40-2Rs for me. And again, based on what he'd done before. So, a 1994 Conrail layout, these things were, they were regulars up there. And now I get to have 2 of them on the model railroad. Like, what an era. What an era when you can get stuff put together like this.
This podcast was such a bad idea. It was just a bad idea. So I found Southern Tier Model Works on Facebook. Southern Tier, Tier, Model Works on Facebook. And the first post 10 hours ago is my fave 6 axles on Conrail. I saw many back in Suffern once they were stopped. Blah, blah, blah.
It's the 6994 and the 6981, isn't it?
Yep. And
those are the 2 that'll be here on the OC within a couple of weeks.
To be lit by Garden State Model Works. Look at that.
There you go.
Wow. This whole thing is just absolutely bizarre. Absolutely bizarre.
It's bizarre. And it's a little out of control.
Yes, it's out of control. That's right. We have to be careful not to let it suck the fun out. You have to get to a point where where you don't let. This was basically the message I got from the golf school. Don't pursue the game to such an extent that it sucks the life out of you. And this is what this guy had learned by trying to be a professional and selling his life to trying to be a professional. Is his lesson was he had let the game become so intense that it basically sucked the life out of him, and he went past a certain point where he had any chance of getting better because he was getting worse because he was so intense. He was so intense. He couldn't, and that was his message. Lighten up.
Well, there's an intensity to it because it's something, there's, the antithesis of this hobby is the worldwide political news, the worldwide economic news that we read every day on Facebook, that we see on the TV or we see on the news flashes or Twitter or wherever you get your news from. And it's difficult to disengage from those things. But one of the things that I think is very important for every psyche, certainly the masculine psyche, certainly the way guys do things, but also the way everyone does things, is that you have to feel like you belong someplace. You have to feel like you've got something to contribute and that what you contribute is appreciated. Not every day, not every minute, but sometimes. And model railroading is someplace that we all belong, all of us. Anybody that wants to join the party is welcome. Anybody that wants to listen to the AML is welcome. Everybody that wants to listen to the AML is welcome. Come see the Onondaga Cutoff at Springfield. Come to the Mother's Life tables at Springfield. Go to the Rapido Trains booth at Springfield. Go to the Scale Trains booth. Go to all of this stuff is right here in front of us. You go to Springfield, you can meet the editor of Rare Model Craftsman. You're going to be able to meet the people that do the product design at Athearn or Rapido or Scale Trains. You're going to be able to see the Atlas booth. You're going to be able to buy a prototype lantern. You're going to be able to meet the people that weather trains. All of it is at Springfield. And other meets around the country all offer some really spectacular and unique opportunities. But all you have to do is show up. You just got to do it.
Yeah. You just got to do it, man.
You just got to do it. And it's going to be okay. Come on out. Come on out and enjoy yourself. And you'll be amazed.
And you know how they can find your your table?
I don't. I haven't tried to do that yet.
Well, it's going to be on the map.
It's going to be on the map. Thank you. And thank you, John Sacerdoti, and thank you, Lionel Strang.
Yeah, you now owe
all
me
of your help. Of your help on the Onondaga Cutoff.
You now owe me for the rest of your life.
Well, what else is new?
Exactly. All right, we got to stop now. What a great time! What a great time we have on these things.
We have a great time, and I don't think we've even scratched the surface. Talk about walking out to the first wave or swimming out to the first wave.
We're not even close.
Long way to go, my friend.
Yeah,
we're gonna get there someday.
Just the mere fact that you got your self-published book, which you can get by emailing onondagacutoff@gmail.com and just send Dave a note and say you'd like to buy one of his books, guarding the Chicago line. Just send out for one of those books. We might have to, off the air, we might have to come up with some sort of... I'm very concerned. This is what's wrong with my brain. I'm very concerned that they're basically all going to be gone by 10 or 11 o'clock. And people that are going to have, wanted to come up and see if they could get one later, that you're going to be standing there going, oh, I'm sorry, they're all gone.
People can also email me and let me know that they want me to hold on to one for them at Springfield.
Well, that's true. People can email you and say, please hold me one for Springfield. There you go.
Happy to do that.
But then they're still good.
I also plan on having the Signals book also. I'll have a limited number of those available at Springfield, probably 20 or 30 of those that I can stockpile from the publisher. And it's going to be, you make a good point. It's going to be fun to have those books on the table when we get started on Friday. That's going to be fun.
Are you going to wear your Modeler's Life shirt either Saturday or Sunday?
Well, you mean like a tie around my head?
No, like as in on your body. like a T-shirt, one of the shirts.
Oh, of course.
Attaboy. Because
Yeah.
you also got your Onondaga shirt.
Are you going to wear an Onondaga cutoff T-shirt on one of the days at your table?
You know what? I think on Saturday we should wear the Modeler's Life Onondaga shirt, the blue one that we made.
Okay.
We'll both wear that one, and then on Sunday we'll surprise each other with which AML shirt we're wearing.
There's an option there.
Yeah.
But I got to wear an Onondaga cutoff T-shirt at some point.
All right. Well, then let's wear. You probably should send me another Onondaga cutout T-shirt then.
And that's something I've been thinking about separately. That's okay. That's a separate discussion. We got to talk apparel. We should talk apparel on the next one of these.
All right, we'll talk apparel, but then you can be in charge of it. You can.
It is a bit cumbersome, as they say.
Well, and like I've said a million times on the podcast, you're talking to a guy that since the age of 25 has had a personal secretary that did basically all of my, mailing out stuff and whatever. And I have never really made her. Although the other day she was like, "Are you going to fold these shirts up or what?" And then she's like, "You got to get these shirts out. Come on, let me help you get these shirts out." So I think she's finally gonna. I've never asked her to be involved in the AML day-to-day business, but maybe she should, because administrative work is not my thing. Other than saying to people, "Hey, do this, do that."
That's not really administrative work.
No.
No,
seems like administrative work to me.
That doesn't surprise me.
I thought I told you to do X. Well, yeah,
right.
But I haven't got around to it yet. Well, how come?
That's like, it was a Kevin Keefe that wrote the article in Trains, The Privileged Perch. The guys that ride, he was able to ride a caboose thanks to a special invitation. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's you know what? I realized pretty early in life that I don't take orders well or direction well. The only way I was going to survive was to...
Well, at least you're honest about it. That's
absolutely. And I learned that. I learned that as a supervisor in the trucking division of the Canadian National Railroad.
I love, you've got some stories from there for sure.
Exactly. All right. That's it. We got to go.
All right. Good enough.
Oh, yeah. One thing is, Dave, when you finish listening, like I know you listen to all the AML podcasts and some of them twice. And
only a handful twice. Only the ones that have to do with Jason Strawn have I listened to twice.
Oh, okay. There you go.
Yeah. They're fascinating.
Would it kill you to play along and just go, uh-huh?
Uh-huh.
Gee.
No?
We went over this during the table read of the script.
Okay.
So anyways, I know you listen to all the podcasts and some of them twice. But when you're done listening to all of the AML podcasts and you're desperately looking for something to search for or listen to, we've decided here at the old AML headquarters that we're going to, at the end of each podcast, promote one or two other podcasts that we enjoy. And today we're talking about TSG Multimedia with John Abadacola. Sorry, John, if I didn't say that right. And because he's got a lot of good stuff. He does a ton of video stuff. And then the other thing is my favorite other podcast, I think, of all of them is my buddy Nick Ozrak, and it's called The Roundhouse. This is a young guy that's making a career for himself, making videos and is a media guy, and he's made promotional videos for railroads and stuff, and he's carving his own path, and he's got a podcast called The Roundhouse, and it's very good. He puts it out like once a month, so I highly recommend The Roundhouse and TSG Multimedia. Go check.
Super cool.
Super cool. And because this is on the free channel, we got to do all the other work. So if you want to send us an email, either a positive email, or even if you have some constructive criticism, or even if you just have criticism that isn't constructive, we want to hear all your emails. And so it's modelerslife@gmail.com. That's modelers with one L, like Abelese, not two L's like Lionel.
Or one L like Conrail and not two L's like Blue Circle.
Okay. What's Blue Circle?
is a cement company on the Onondaga Cutoff, and also on the prototype up there by Albany.
Oh, there you go. Perfect.
Isn't that nice? I thought you'd like that.
And if you didn't catch the email address, you can just go to our website, amodellerslife.com. That's a long story why there's an A and a not an A. amodellerslife.com, and just scroll down to the picture of the moderately agitated male boy in a particularly agitated state, and click on his picture, and boom, the email address is already in there for you. And Dave,
and it's so easy. It literally is one click. It opens right up, and you can send your message. I think it's also worth mentioning 2 different Patreon channel options as well. There's an A Mother's Life Patreon channel, which is all of the backstory of A Mother's Life. It gives you the inside track, and you can hear all of the backstory with a bunch of different fan podcasts, and it's fantastic. And that link is also on the Mother's Life
website.
Page.
Yep.
On the website. Yep.
And then if just below that, you'll see a picture of you and me in a particularly romantic state. And there's
I never thought of it that way, but okay, that's all right.
And there's a button there, and if you click on the button, you'll go to Uncle Dave's Patreon page, which is actually really good. It is really good, because what I like about it is it's the backstory. You get to spend time with Uncle Dave, and you make videos. You make great videos, and you there's all kinds of stuff to learn. And I'm convinced you're going to be so glad you did this. There's a couple of videos a month, the first and third Friday of every month. There's a couple of videos a month, and you're going to be thrilled 20 years when you have this library of videos that you've made. And people that want to see them, they can just go to the Patreon page, and boom, there you are.
We just passed our first year anniversary with that, and admittedly already it's cool to see the progress. They're all dated. They're there on the Onondaga Cutoff Patreon page, and we take you behind the scenes on the construction projects, the detail projects, the repair projects. How we make the railroad ready for Facebook Live is all on the Onondaga Cutoff Patreon page. So we're happy to have you there, and it's already fun to see it coming together. And I appreciate all the support, Lionel. Thank you.
Believe it or not, I was going to cut this podcast off at about an hour and a half. That kind of blew up in my face.
It didn't happen.
No,
that's all right. Next time, maybe.
We got way too much to talk about.
We're just getting started.
Oh, yeah. Dave, have you ever wanted a T-shirt with a hot dog on it?
I have, but only if it's covered with mustard.
Yep. And you go to...
I'm just saying.
If you go to Midwest Model Railroad, and that's a great place to get all your model railroad supplies. But if you go to Midwest Model Railroad and scroll across their navigation bar to other and click on the drop-down menu, you'll see the AML shop. And if in there, boom, there's hats, hoodies, mugs, T-shirts, and in there you'll find a T-shirt with a hot dog on it.
Fantastic. And I'll tell you, if you're ever in the Kansas City area, Midwest Model Railroad is a great stop. I've been there myself. What a pleasure to visit. It's a great spot to visit.
And the best thing is, once you've finished buying all your AML merchandise, you go back out onto the main site, and you'll find all of the Rapido trains.
Your fast track to model railroading fun.
If it's N, if it's H-O, the fast track is Rapido.
That you'll ever need. That's it.
See?
We're done. I'm stopping now.
I learned slow.
Are you ready?
I'm ready.
So remember, A Modeler's Life podcast is considered marginally adequate by 6 out of 10
people that make self-published books about the Chicago line.
And now it's time for the New Jersey Transit Elevator Escalator Report. Take it away, Dave.
Good morning, everybody. Today, number one here on the list is Newark Penn Station number 14. That one needs a step chain adjustment. They got to adjust the lower carriage assembly. Newark Penn Station number 8 is back in service. Secaucus 16 was out overnight for a skirt panel reset, but he's back in service too. Somerville eastbound is still out for its DCA test. We had a sump pump problem, so they should be back on that later this week. And Absecon, the lone elevator there was out overnight. Somebody held the doors open too long, and it's back in service as of this morning.
It's another Lincoln Homer.